We approach this morning a question that carries with it the bitter flavor of ambition and cunning. How to outsmart, how to overcome anyone without even speaking a single word. Look at the intention behind this question, please. It springs from a deep-seated desire for victory, a fundamental need for superiority, a quest for domination over the other person. It reveals a mind that is perpetually at war, that seeks to manipulate and control the psychological environment for its own advantage, for the glorification of the me. The very idea of outsmarting another person is the ultimate expression of fragmentation. If you are seeking to conquer or gain an upper hand over someone, it is because you perceive yourself as a separate, incomplete entity, one that can only assert its existence by negating or dominating the one standing opposite you. But the other person, is he not, as we have observed many times, the mirror of your own deep confusion? Is not your consciousness the shared consciousness of mankind, with the same fears, the same ambitious residue, the same tendency toward violence and deceit? If you'd like to support me and create more content, like this post now to show you want to continue this journey with us. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Every week, we share simple yet powerful secrets to moving better, staying independent, and living life to the fullest. The only genuine power, the only action that leaves no trace of conflict or sorrow, is not found in subtle manipulation, but in an intelligence that transcends the entire field of speech, the entire mechanism of accumulated thought. The trap of the verbal arena, perpetuating disorder. When you enter into a verbal joust, when you seek to outsmart the other through a clever argument, through a calculated silence, or through intellectual prevarication, what are you fundamentally doing? You are mobilizing thought. Thought, which is merely the memory, the accumulation of knowledge, past experience, and verbal concepts. You are essentially searching your own data bank for the precise verbal weapon that will give you an advantage over the other person's stock of data. This is a battle between two memories, two accumulations, two residues of the collective human past. Thought, by its very nature, is fragmentary. It is the instrument of measure. It can never grasp the wholeness of reality. It is always delayed. When thought speaks, it speaks already from the grave of the past moment. Therefore, if you use thought to win an argument, both the winner and the loser are trapped within the very same matrix of psychological time and fragmentation. The victory is nothing more than a form of pleasure, and pleasure, as we have analyzed previously, inevitably breeds its shadow, fear, the fear of losing the next time, the fear of not being recognized, the fear of losing face. The person who seeks to outsmart the other is a person who takes himself extremely seriously, is he not? His image, his psychological status, his desperate need for approval and validation are paramount. And this image, this accumulated me, is extraordinarily vulnerable. It is a fortress built of sand, and the mere word of the other person, or even their silent indifference, is always felt as a devastating threat. The act of outsmarting the other is, therefore, the act of perpetuating fundamental psychological disorder. You do not end the conflict. You merely suppress it, push it down, or postpone it to the next moment of reckoning. The real question is not how to outsmart the other, but how to outsmart the need to outsmart. This necessitates a radical shift from seeking victory in the external world to establishing order within the structure of your own consciousness. Order is virtue, and that virtue has nothing whatsoever to do with social morality, which allows us to be greedy, envious, and monstrous within the law. The internal order is the very foundation of intelligence, the dawn of new intelligence, observation without the observer. The radical question we must pose is this: can there be an action that is not merely the reaction of memory, a response that is not generated by thought, but which emerges from a source entirely different? This source, we call it intelligence. It has nothing to do with accumulated intellect, cunning, or a high IQ score. It is the quality of a mind that is totally empty of its own self-regarding accumulation. How does this intelligence outsmart without uttering a single word? It operates through the immense energy of total attention. When someone attacks you verbally, accuses you, challenges your competence, or attempts to manipulate you, the energy of the other is projected directly at you. The intervention of the ego. Ordinarily, the me, the psychological observer, instantly reacts. It mobilizes the defense. It searches for a swift reply. It compares the attack to its cherished self-image. This is the movement of thought, which consumes time and initiates the psychological wound. The action of intelligence. Intelligence, conversely, has no image to defend. It exists in a state of total vulnerability, which is paradoxically the only true invulnerability. It cannot be psychologically touched because there is nothing to touch, no accumulated residue to recoil in pain. When you are in the state of observation without the observer, you listen to the other person without the intervention of time. You are not just listening to the words, you are listening to the speaker's total being, their anxiety, their fear, their disorder, their fundamental loneliness. This act of total, non-reactive listening is the only way to instantly dissolve the conflict. The energy of the other person projected onto a mind that is psychologically empty and supremely attentive has no surface to grasp. It is like throwing a stone into water that has no bottom. There is no recoil, no returning force. This and this alone is what it means to truly outsmart, to place yourself entirely beyond the psychological conflict. The other person expects a reaction, a defense, an argument. This is what they know. This is the currency of human interaction. But the quality of your attention is the unexpected action, the action that is not contained within the stock of human reactions. If you'd like to support me and create more content, like this post now to show you want to continue this journey with us. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Every week, we share simple yet powerful secrets to moving better, staying independent, and living life to the fullest. The silence that arises from clarity is the only silence that possesses transformative power. The silence of cunning or calculation is the noisiest activity of thought, the power of uncalculated stillness and attention. The stillness we are discussing is not a technique that you can practice. It is not a method to intimidate or to mask your inner confusion. Calculated silence is merely the most volatile activity of thought, is it not? The mind is churning, furiously preparing the next move, suppressing the urge to reply, rehearsing the perfect final word, the silence that outsmarts. Without word is the stillness of acute non-directional attention. This attention is the discipline of learning we have repeatedly emphasized. It cannot be forced. It arises naturally from the simple factual recognition that any attempt to outsmart, to manipulate, or to win is the perpetuation of the common human disorder. Intelligence resides in the sheer velocity of perception. While the other person is speaking, accusing, arguing, challenging, the ordinary mind is frantically engaged in 4 parallel time-consuming activities. Translation: comparing the speaker's words against its own memory of past facts and events. Judgment: evaluating whether the speaker is right or wrong, fair or unfair, true or false. Self-defense: preparing the counter-argument, the linguistic maneuver that will protect the fragile self-image. Reaction: generating the initial emotional surge, anger, resentment, fear. All these activities constitute the movement of psychological time and fragmentation. This is the delay necessary for the wound to settle and the conflict to take root. But when intelligence is operational, when the mind is supremely awake, there is an immediate, non-judgmental observation of the other's speech. The mind is intensely active, not passive, yet this activity is not one of reaction. It is the activity of total clarity. When you perceive the other person's confusion, their desperate need for victory, their personal mechanism of fear, without the slightest movement of judgment, this vision dissolves the very necessity to react. It is like watching a child in a terrible temper tantrum. You do not join the child's anger. You see the cause of the outburst, and the action you take is one of compassion and intelligence, not reaction. This is not sentimental compassion. It is the act of clear vision. The action that emerges from this clarity is not verbal. It is the fact of being. The unaccumulated being is a force that fundamentally alters the atmosphere of the encounter. The other person, encountering this non-defensive stillness, is compelled to confront his own confusion. There is no echo of his conflict, and the energy of the attack falls back upon himself. This is action without effort, which is the very essence of true psychological freedom. This is the only way to hold yourself utterly beyond the possibility of manipulation. The necessity of ending the psychological mark, the fundamental secret to being such a person, to be invulnerable to argument and cunning, is to put a complete end to the psychological mark that we all carry. We established that the eagle in flight leaves no trace in the sky. Similarly, the individual who is truly capable of outsmarting without word is the one whose mind has no psychological residue of the last meeting, the last victory, or the last injury. He is new at every single moment. Accumulation is vulnerability. If you accumulate yesterday's victory, yesterday's praise, or yesterday's success, you have already created the target for the other person's manipulation. Your need to be continually recognized as the intelligent man is the psychological weakness they will exploit. Clarity is freedom. If you are psychologically empty of all accumulation, there is nothing to defend, nothing to store, nothing to lose. The other person has nothing to grasp, nothing to wound. There is no subtle tactic to learn. There is no esoteric secret to acquire. The only secret is total integrity and the absence of psychological fear. The absence of fear is the ending of thought in the psychological field. And when thought no longer creates images of defense and attack, then you are a light unto yourself, a light that has no need to speak in order to instantly dissolve the shadow of conflict. If you enter into any conversation, any relationship, any confrontation, in this state of non-defensive attention, you have already taken the radical step that transcends the other. You have no need to prove, to explain, or to justify. The action is in the quality of being itself. This is the only state where you are free from the wound and where you are, consequently, beyond all possibility of manipulation. But this freedom must be realized now, in the immediacy of this instant, not in some imagined future where you have mastered a deceptive technique. This is the most difficult thing, isn't it? Because the mind always cries out for a method, a system to follow to achieve this goal. But the system is the enemy of intelligence. Intelligence is not found in the learning of a technique of silence. It is found in the immediate vision of the utter futility and stupidity of all psychological manipulation. It is this vision that puts an end to the movement of thought and places you completely out of reach of any attempt at cunning. This is the essence of the unconditioned action.